Hello and welcome. I am Exit Light, and this is my channel. Today I'm going to tell you the story of a strange disappearance and death of a man named Aaron Hedges in the crazy mountains of the northern Rocky Mountain Range in Montana. Before we get started, if you would please give this video a thumbs up, it helps my channel to be seen. If you are not subscribed and you would like to be, please consider doing so. And if you do, please click that bell and you'll be notified when my content goes live. All right, let's get into this, shall we? Aaron Joseph Hedges was a 38-year-old man, a hunter from Bozeman, Montana, and he went elk hunting in the crazy mountains in early September of 2014 with two of his friends, Greg Leitner of Idaho and Joe Depew of Bozeman. Aaron was last seen or heard from on September 5th, 2014, and nearly 2 years later, his body finally turned up 15 miles from Sunlight Lake, his original destination, in strange circumstances. This is another bizarre hunting-related disappearance and death in the backcountry. So, let me give you a little bit of background on the hunting trip. The hunters began their week-long trip at the Cottonwood Lake trailhead on Thursday, September 3rd, 2014. The site was about 20 miles north of the town of Billings, Montana. With him, Aaron Hedges carried a bow and arrow, as well as a handgun in his pack. His companions were both armed with rifles. Their intent was to base themselves around a campfire lake, and the group had brought 2 horses and a mule, although Aaron had walked in. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about the crazy mountains and why they were possibly named that way. There's several legends. I'm going to tell you about 2 of the main ones, and they're pretty similar. According to the most popular legend, the crazy mountains of Montana were named in memory of a woman whose family of settlers, homesteaders, were massacred by Native Americans while she was out walking. When the alleged perpetrators returned about a week later, it said that she burst from her cabin and attacked them using a tomahawk that had been used to kill the oldest of her 3 sons. The raiders retreated, and watching in dismay, they called her the crazy woman, and she fled into the wilderness and was never seen again. There's also a story about a woman and her family that were coming over on a wagon train, and she apparently went crazy, got off of her wagon, started running around screaming, and ran into the mountains and was never seen or heard from again. But the local native tribes, they said that they had seen a crazy woman and called the mountains Crazy Woman Mountain. Then it was eventually shortened to Crazy Mountains. So from the get-go of this camping trip, the group was having a couple of problems. As they started on the trail towards Campfire Lake, their mule suddenly spooked and started bucking and threw the supplies and kit it was carrying off the trail, including Aaron's sleeping bag. On September 5th, about 10 a.m., Aaron decided to head up towards Sunlight to try and replace his lost sleeping bag. His plan was to seek shelter at a location where they had a hunting camp the previous year and where the group had placed a cache, including spare sleeping bags. Greg and Joe told Aaron that he needed to come back into camp as the area is isolated and really dangerous at night. He explained that he was going to go grab the supplies and return to his friends that evening. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. The friends started calling Aaron about 4 p.m. on their Garmin walkie-talkies. The walkie-talkies showed their respective GPS positions on the screen, and they noticed that the position of Aaron was on the very edge of the screen, as he had missed the fork in the trail towards the lake and instead was walking northeast for some reason. Now, I've seen this trail, And I watched a documentary about this, and the trail was not easy to miss. It was pretty clear, especially since he had been in this area before and camped right there. So his friends were a little confused. That was the last time that the group ever heard from Aaron. On September 6th, his friends realized that Aaron was definitely missing. He failed to return to the camp, and then, as sometimes happens, a huge snowstorm came in on September 7th with somewhere between 18 to 24 inches of snow, and the temperature fell dramatically from 40 to 50 degrees to 10 to 15 degrees. Now, while his hunting buddies realized that Aaron was missing on September 6th and 7th, Hedges wasn't reported missing until his wife, Christine, notified the Sweetgrass County Sheriff's Office on September 8th, after she was then called by Greg and Joe. The time difference between Aaron's disappearance and the time when authorities were called is a little confusing. His two friends justified their decision by saying that they had looked for him and figured, well, he's armed and he's an experienced woodsman. But keep in mind, he didn't even have anything to keep him warm. The temperatures had been 50 degrees. He had gone to get a sleeping bag, and then came all that snow. So experience is not always the best competitor against Mother Nature. The group also blamed the remoteness of the area and the lack of cellular phone coverage for not calling sooner. Corporal Greg Todd, who headed up the Park County Search and Rescue, said he was unable to draw any firm conclusions at the time. This is a quote from him. "It's the million-dollar mystery we have right now. We just have so many unanswered questions that it really just doesn't give us much of a direction. To me, that just seems too long to report somebody missing. I can understand if your buddy's missing, you can go out and look for him for a day, but after that, you need more help. I might have waited a day. He might have killed something, and it might take some time to get it back to camp, so I'll go look for him the next day, see if he needs help getting some stuff out. If I can't find him by the end of that day, I'm getting the hell out of there and I'm asking for help." He goes on to say, "I can't speculate or second guess. I've been doing search and rescue for a while now, and people react differently. In the situation at hand, I can't speculate on their thought process." By the time the official search had started, the bad weather, which hit in the area on September 7th, hindered efforts to find Aaron, of course. The continuing storm made air search almost impossible for the first couple of days, and horseback riders were initially sent out before others joined in. Search and rescue teams focused their efforts on the area that stretches from the Cottonwood Lake Trail to the Trespass Creek. 20 dog teams went in, 7 horse teams, 59 ground searchers, and National Guard and private helicopters equipped with night vision equipment and spotlights eventually joined into the effort. Aaron's boots were found on Wednesday, September 9th, the second day of the search, way east of Sunlight Lake, close to the creek and falls. They were set intentionally side by side. Close by was a camelback water bladder, and just off the trail was a fire pit with a partially burned cigarette pack, a fire bundle, 2 waist belts from a backpack that had been cut off were also located, but despite an extensive search, there was nothing else. The tube connected to the bladder had been removed, causing searchers to believe that Aaron had probably tried to drink water. Strangely, though, the searchers were in the same spot a day or two before, and they did not come across these items. Of course, we see many times where shoes are found or a person is found without their shoes. It was very strange that Hedges had removed his boots in the snow and cold weather. Even if hypothermia had set in, causing him to remove clothing in his footwear, he would have gotten only a short distance without wearing his boots in 2 feet of snow. The thing is, when people get cold Instead of wrapping up in extreme temperatures, they can paradoxically start taking off their clothes. Sniffer dogs in the area did not pick up that scent, or any scent. Despite finding this evidence, by September 22nd, officials decided to scale back the search until they received more information. Then, the following summer, on June 22nd, 2015, which was about 9 months after he disappeared, Roger Beslanovich, who was a butcher from Powell, Wyoming, came across Aaron's belongings while visiting relatives at the Rain Inca Ranch in Sweetgrass County. Beslanovich had to wait a while because a relative was fixing a fence in the area, so with some time to kill, he wanted to go look at a beautiful ridge and decided to go on top of the ridge above. After taking in the vista, Beslanovich took a shortcut through a stand of timber, and he saw an orange hunting vest, as well as a backpack and clothing. He's quoted as saying, "My first thought when I saw clothes piled up against a tree, I just knew there was going to be a body there. There's a lot of bear activity where they flip the rocks over to eat the bugs underneath. I just knew there was going to be a body there." But there wasn't. Beslanovich's inventory of the scene included this: a bow, a backpack, socks, shirts, sweatpants, and a vest. The backpack had holes in it, which he assumed were caused by small animals. There were wrappers from granola bars, along with other debris, and it was scattered around nearby. Aaron's gun and driver's license were also in the pack. He goes on to say, "I thought some out-of-state hunter got cold and disoriented and wanted to go home, but he couldn't find his stuff. So I gathered it all up, put it in the backpack to haul it back out. When I was just about done, I saw a piece of paper, and it was part of his license, and it had his name on it, and it said, Bozeman, Montana." The gear was only a short distance from the main ranch house, which would have meant safety for Aaron. The area was searched, and strangely at the head of the ridge was a thermos cup and an open energy drink. But there were no remains or further clues as to what had happened to Aaron. It was on August 8th, 2016, near the Sweetgrass Ranch, when some guests found a skull underneath a dead tree. Law enforcement was shown the skeletal remains of a skull and then began a systematic search of the area, where they uncovered less than 80% of Hedges' skeleton, all within about 50 to 70 yards. The majority of the remains were concentrated in a 20-yard area. The spread of the remains was not unusual, according to the Undersheriff Alan Ronneberg. You have to consider that he was possibly been there for over a year. Within that year, you have weather events, predators, everything from ants to bears. Sweetgrass County Sheriff Dan Tronrud said, "It's still an ongoing investigation. Are we going to be able to tell what the man died from? Probably not. There's not bullet holes in the skull. There's nothing else that we can see. The forensic pathologist will look to see if there's knife wounds on the bones or hatchet marks, but I'm guessing it's going to go down as one of those mysteries." Investigators found a Samsung cell phone on Aaron's body and were initially hopeful to recover data from it to gather further insight into his death, but it was found to be corroded beyond repair by a Bozeman-based data retrieval service in late August of 2016, having been exposed to the elements for nearly 2 years. It was given multiple chemical baths in an attempt to remove corrosion. Landowner Rebecca Rain described the location where the items were found as full of pine trees, broken down branches, and tall grasses. She said, "It's pretty low where it was, actually. It wasn't too far off of Rain Road. Who would just have guessed that it was that close? He could have seen our house." So, what happened to Aaron Hedges on that trip? Could it be that, being hypothermic and disoriented, Aaron removed his boots and then headed in the wrong direction? But if the hunting party began their trip from the Cottonwood Lake trailhead on the west side of the mountains, and Aaron was bound for Sunlight Lake to the north, how did he end up on the east side of the range? The distance he would have had to walk would have been around 15 miles, and much of it off trail, including through really, really rough terrain, including rocks and heavy foliage, keeping in mind that he's barefoot. And through all that, there was a big storm battering the area. The decision to travel east along the sweetgrass drainage could have presented a considerable challenge even for the most experienced outdoorsman. The distance covered without boots in fairly deep snow in freezing temperatures seems impossible. Searchers were certainly very skeptical that Aaron could walk in bare feet from the creek to the area where he was found. As the crow flies, it's about 13 miles from Sweetgrass Creek to the Rain Ranch, and probably double that in reality because of the terrain. And then also, Aaron was in sight of a home, buildings, close to a road, given where his remains are found. Sweetgrass County Undersheriff Alan Ronenberg says he was very close, but he just didn't quite get there. Police believe he may have passed up the opportunity for shelter out of fear of getting caught trespassing. Apparently, all three hunters were known for trespassing and poaching. But if that's true, then what was he afraid of? It's something he had done before. It's something he could have done at night. And also, he was in serious danger. And there was a home. When his wife, Christine Hedges, initially reported her husband missing, she told the dispatch that he had entered the area by trespassing on the Park County side. So again, what would he have been afraid of? So, this is a bizarre case from the crazy mountains of Montana. Very crazy. Thank you for coming to my channel. Please leave your comments below. Let me know what you think. Let's have a discussion. And good night.